Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again, back with more neighbor stories. In this video, a crazy Canadian neighbor informed me that he owns my entire driveway. He then shot me because I had the audacity to shovel snow there. Here is what happened. Years ago, I got a speeding ticket in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was a typical speed trap where they sit at the bottom of a steep hill, knowing that lots of people will exceed the very low speed limit because, well, gravity. It was complete BS, so I decided to fight it and at least make them work for their $100 fine. I read everything I could on fighting radar tickets, and one strategy was to check whether the police department had proper FCC documents on the radar used. And if they don't, the radar info is inadmissible and you probably win your case. I went to the Worcester police station and I found the records department down in the basement. I showed them the ticket and explained that I wanted to view the paperwork for the radar that was used to record my speed. I had to wait a couple minutes, but some official came out and sternly informed me that civilians don't have access to that information. Cue my malicious compliance. So I asked a few people how you request records for a court case, and it turns out that, at least in Massachusetts, that's one of the things the sheriff office does. So I went to them, paid them $50, I know, on a $100 ticket, but I've always enjoyed tilting at windmills, and described the documents I required. I have to admit that by the time I had to go to court, I kind of forgotten about the sheriff's department, but I did notice this police officer sitting in the audience section with all the other people fighting tickets. This guy was not your typical police officer though. He was wearing a very fancy uniform and his hat had all kinds of gold braid on it. And he did not look happy. Traffic court being traffic court, it's all kinds of disorganized with a bunch of citizens sitting around waiting for things to start. And of course the proceedings plod along at a snail's pace. Finally, my name is called after about half an hour and this police officer comes over to me and explains that he is the captain or lieutenant, I forgot now, in charge of the entire records division for the Worcester police, and he has the radar records in his hand for me to examine. So I look it over and it seems to all be in order, so I thank him. He is visibly angry about having to spend his morning sitting in traffic court over a $100 citation, totally worth the $50. To this day, I don't know whether someone at the sheriff's department was just messing with the police department by naming the top guy in the records request, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Don't want to let the citizens see your records? Fine. I would have loved to have been there when the sheriff's department showed up to serve the head guy with a court order. Oh, and by the way, I lost the case. And yeah, Ripe stars, by the way, I'm curious, have you ever seen these videos on YouTube of American police officers being in all sorts of trouble? There are so many channels nowadays that have these police body cam footage style videos, and it seems like they are super popular. Have you ever watched these videos before? It seems to be like a new trend or something. Anyway, the next one is titled Petty Revenge on Ex-Wife. So I'm about a year out from divorce. My ex-wife has been acting petty and childish to say the least. Tries to make me look bad any attempt she gets. My young son played t-ball last year and I volunteered to be the coach. Really enjoyed it, but my work responsibilities and schedule changed before this season and I simply couldn't commit to do it again. I became good friends with the guy running the league and let him know before the signups even started as a heads up. Was disappointed, but not much to do. What I was able to do was volunteer to get to the field super early on Saturday, before the game started, to set them up, chalk line the batters' boxes, foul lines, put out bases, etc. 3 fields total, which he of course was extremely grateful for. A few weeks before the season was supposed to start, they were unfortunately short a couple coaches and were sending out some desperation emails to all of the parents. My ex knew my situation and apparently thought going onto the website and basically fraudulently volunteering me to coach would be a great way to inconvenience me, making me look bad by having to back out, etc. So she did just that. Buddy running the league called me very confused. In order to register, you have to make a username and password. Username is just your email, so after a few minutes of looking through the registration, we worked out what happened as her email was in the account name. Ultimately, he decided to put his kid on my son's team and be the coach on top of everything else he was doing. He was pissed at my ex himself though, because this stunt could have set them back finding a legit coach if they needed to, possibly even delaying the league. Here is where I come up with the petty revenge. He sends out the official email out to all of the parents of the league with the rosters and coaches for all 10 teams. Except for our kids team, instead of listing himself, I tell him to list my ex, put her name and contact info, etc., and says to expect further info from each coach individually. She emails him back once she notices to point out the mistake, saying it should have been me instead, but he ignores it. He sends her all of the clearances coaches need to pass, asks for times she can come pick up equipment, the whole 9 yards. After a couple of days, parents of the team apparently start emailing her asking for info on when the seasons start and when practice will be and all of that. Eventually, he does reply back playing dumb, telling her she's the one who volunteered, as it was her username that registered and knew it was not supposed to be me, as he had spoken to me months earlier and knew that I was not able to do it this year. Put her in an awkward spot because she either had to admit what she did or feign some BS ignorance and claim a miscommunication, which everyone knew was nonsense as we were divorced. After she flat out says that she cannot coach and she's not sure what to tell him, he sends out another email to the entire league which says, due to the coach, our kids team name, backing out at the very last minute, I've no choice but to take on coaching the team myself, on top of the rest of the responsibilities. Moving forward, we ask that coaches don't volunteer unless they plan on fulfilling that commitment. He did not mention her by name, but everyone saw the rosters and knew that he was talking about her. She texted me a few weeks later once the season started about how my buddy is an a-hole for doing that to her due to a glitch in the registration software, as multiple people have approached her and asked her not so nicely what happened, and she knows she is getting looks from people during the games. What a satisfying text it was to receive. And yeah, Ripe Stars, props to OP for this absolutely brilliant petty revenge. Now let's go to the title story, which is titled Neighbor Shot Me for Shoveling Snow. So I live in Canada, and unless you've been living under a rock, you will know that Canada during winter becomes a white blanket of snow. I also live quite high up in a mountain range, so I have to deal with a lot of snow each year. This is not usually a major issue. If it was, I would move, but it does mean I'm constantly shoveling snow. I have one neighbor right next door to me, and then there's a few other houses littered nearby, but I would not consider them neighbors. My next door neighbor and I share a driveway. Picture a long driveway connecting to a road and two houses spouting off of it opposite each other. It's more like a shared road than a driveway, but anyway, that's our layout. Said layout has not been a problem for any of the last neighbors I've had, but when my new neighbors moved in a couple months ago, they had an issue straight away. The first time I met my neighbor, a man named Mike, was when he had stormed over to my house and banged on the door. Hello, you must be... I began feeling shamed that I hadn't been the one to go and introduce myself first. Zip it, we've seen you using our driveway for the past couple days. I don't know if your last neighbors allowed it, but we won't. My neighbor said, staring down at me. Do you mean the driveway that connects to both of our houses? Because I have not been driving any closer to your home than that. We don't share it, it belongs to us, stop using it. What? Check the deeds. We do share it. It won't be outlined in your paperwork. In fact, I think the council owns it technically. It's more of just a short road. Don't backtalk me. Stop using my driveway. He stormed off after that. Just to clear some things up, like most driveways, that's the only way to get your car close to your house. There was no other way I could park my car next to my house than to use the driveway, so I really didn't know what he thought I'd be doing instead. Obviously, I kept using the driveway, something he really was not happy about. I got a total of 6 notes stuck to my car telling me again to stop using it, another 4 in through my letterbox, and a letter of in-person lashings whenever he caught me heading to my car. I told him time and time again that he did not own the driveway and to take it up with whoever sold him the house, and that I could not possibly do anything else to get to my house. He said I should just park on the street even though we have no street and it is just a busy road. Anyway, this problem continued for weeks, and when it began to snow as winter crept up, all hell broke loose. As most people do, I shoveled the driveway. Otherwise, there was no way I could drive my car through to my house. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Mark screamed. I only learned his name later on at the station, but I'm using it now to prevent confusion. Shoveling the driveway, I replied with a tight-lipped smile, knowing this was just another fight beginning. You have no right to do anything on my driveway, thanks very much. Not your drive, and what's even the issue? The issue is you are removing my snow from my driveway without permission from me. Your snow? Really? Stop that! He bellowed as I carried on shoveling. Let's say this was your drive. What would be the problem with me shoveling it for you? What was his problem? I like how it is. It looks nice when the snow covers it. Yes, it does, but how do you plan on driving through it? I asked at the same moment I realized something. I don't drive. Yes, that's right. He does not drive, does not own a car, and did not have the intention of ever owning a car. I cannot believe it even took me that long to realize it, that I never saw a car enter or leave his garage. I guess I always assumed I just didn't see it. Anyway, I was silent after that as I processed the information. Now I was even more confused than before. Let me get this right. I began as I jabbed the shovel into the ground so it stood on its own. You have made all this fuss about me driving on your driveway and you don't even use it yourself. That's got nothing to do with it. You still cannot use it. And you cannot shovel it. We went back and forth for a good half hour after that, my points remaining the same that A, he did not own it, and B, he did not even use it. He, of course, also remained fixed. Convinced that he had full entitlement to the driveway, I ended up just walking back inside. I was getting so frustrated. And clearly we were not going to come to an agreement, stood in the cold. I watched out my window with disbelief as he used his boot to push the snow back onto the area I had began shoveling right before, sticking his middle finger up at me. Charming. I matched the gesture, so I guess I cannot talk. The following day I spotted someone walk over to his house. I looked over to the road where the man had hazardously parked his car, because of course he cannot drive over the snow, and recognized the company as one of a property surveyor. I took the liberty of going over and joining the pair. Yes, come in, so you can hear how wrong you are, Mark said once he saw me approach, and I gladly obliged. The deeds, the man asked with a sigh, clearly loving his job. He looked over the deeds for a few minutes before closing his eyes and sighing again. The driveway is not in your possession. What? Mark screeched, and I felt like apologizing to the property surveyor on his behalf. Well, it is what it is, the man said as he walked out of the door. See, I said, giving him a very immature, I told you so face. His face, however, was going perhaps as red as his wallpaper behind him, fists clenching at his sides to match the scene. Get out, he demanded, and I knew not to press any further. I would take my winnings and leave. I assumed that would be the end of it. After all, he was proven wrong and told that he didn't own said driveway, but boy, was I wrong. So the next day I'm shoveling the driveway once more, thinking that I will finally get some peace and can carry on using it like it was intended, you know, to be driven on. That is when I heard a shot ring out coming from my neighbor's house. He was stood on his porch holding a pistol, and I thought that perhaps the shot was in warning, but then I felt something trickle down my chest and realized it was no warning. Maybe it was the cold, but it took a while for the pain to settle in, and when it did, I was screaming. He ducked back inside and I managed to summon the strength to call the cops. They arrived in minutes, storming into my neighbor's house and dragging him out while a paramedic saw to me. He had actually shot my shoulder, and they guessed that he actually meant to shoot my heart and kill me. The thought made my blood run cold. He had tried to kill me over a damn driveway? He was obviously arrested, and next I heard of him was when he was screaming and kicking the walls a few days later when I was down at the station to give my statement, my arm nicely bandaged in a sling. He got a bunch of years in prison for this, as it was pretty clear what his true aim was. I was not permitted inside the courtroom, but I sat outside and heard them deliver the news, after which Mark kicked off into another round of screaming and attempting to attack the officers. It's not fair, he all but wailed as he was carried out of court and into a cop car. I don't have any new neighbors yet, as this all happened quite recently, but I'm obviously hoping that they are not like that. As for my arm, it seems to be getting better slowly, and yes, Mark did get the luxury of paying my hefty hospital fees. And yeah, Ripe Stars, it seems like these psycho neighbors are getting worse and worse. And honestly, having a bad neighbor is some of the worst things ever. Because you don't really have any power to do something against them. If there is a nightmare neighbor next to you, good luck enjoying your life for the next few years. Unless that crazy neighbor goes as far as this Mark guy, there's not too much you can do usually. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I have lived in the same apartment building for about 5 years. Throughout my time here, I've had many neighbors come and go, and I've never had any noise issues. However, last year a new neighbor moved in 3 units down. He is about 40 and has 3 children under the age of 4. For months I have listened to his children scream and cry all day long, whether it be in his apartment or in the hallway. At first I tried to ignore the behavior as I felt bad. It appeared he was a new single father and was struggling. However, as time went on, it became clear that he just straight up let his kids behave however they want. For example, when they shriek at the top of their lungs in the hallway / right outside my door, he never says, "Shh, let's be quiet," or anything at all. He just lets it happen without a peep. Additionally, I have come to realize the frequency and the volume of the screaming, crying and shrieking is way beyond what's normal. I would venture to say I hear anywhere from 10 to 15 full-on tantrums every single day. All of which are ear-piercingly loud, and like I said, he does not say or do anything about these tantrums. It's now at the point where I find myself frustrated and annoyed in my own home all the time. Right now, I'm working on a paper in my apartment and I cannot even concentrate because all I can hear are his children. Because of this, I wrote a note, a polite note, and left it on his doorstep. Essentially, my note said that I sympathized with him, but the noise is out of control, and I also stressed that I wanted to confront him directly first. I realized that sounds hypocritical since I left an anonymous note rather than going straight to management. Am I the a-hole for leaving this note? And here, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole here or not? And a user in the comments said, "You are the a-hole. What do you think he's gonna do exactly with 3 children under 4? Spend all day elsewhere so you can be comfortable? You live in a shared space. Get earplugs." Comment number 2, I lived in apartments 40 years ago. It sucks. Now you have earplugs, earbuds, noise cancelling headphones. You can walk around with your fancy Dr. Dre beats, whatever, and iPhone music, podcasts and Spotify. You don't know how good you have it compared to the olden days. Comment number 3, not the a-hole, sounds like you did the right thing. Update, I took some of what you said into consideration. Perhaps I just needed to be more patient. I decided if the noise issue escalated, then I would do something. Otherwise, I would just suck it up and use headphones like some of you advised. Well, today, his children screamed and shrieked 4 times within a 1-hour period in the hallway. This was right by my door, about 2 feet away from my apartment. The 4th time it happened, I opened my door and said, "Please don't scream in the hallway, guys." Once I said this, he told me that his kids are allowed to scream in the hallway or anywhere else in the building that they feel like. I told him that actually no, they are not, according to our lease. He then told me to suck it up and to contact management and to not talk to him. After our conversation, he told all 3 of his kids, "You can be as loud as you want in here," and then shot me a nasty look and proceeded to walk to the stairs. Once he said that, all 3 kids started squealing as loud as possible on purpose. I sent management an email and they are talking to him first thing in the morning. I know some of you suggested I do this in the first place and I wish I did. Update number 2, I just went down to the management office to follow up with the manager. She said she had a meeting set for today at 1 PM with the resident. She immediately contacted him when I emailed her last night, but then today he emailed her saying he could no longer make the 1 PM meeting and asked why he had to come down. He is in his apartment right now doing nothing, he doesn't work. She told him he is in violation of his lease and it's best if he comes down. Apparently he didn't reply to her. She told me that if he does not come down to meet with her, she is going to draft an official lease violation letter and begin the process of eviction. I was blown away. She is a great manager, and she told me that his reaction, telling me his kids are allowed to yell and telling the kids to keep yelling, is the reason for how she is handling this, not purely the noise complaint. She said she is horrified and disgusted that somebody would handle the situation this way. Her and I both agreed that it was strange he would encourage me not to speak to him and to contact management rather than just simply telling his kids, "Shh," and appreciating I said something to him directly. Update number 3, after I talked with management, I saw my neighbor bring his children to their mother's house. He has been in his apartment alone for the last few days and has not come out. He has all the blinds drawn. He posted the following status on social media: "I'm the perfect success in all areas of life." My husband follows him, which is how I know this. I think he's pretending he's not home to avoid both myself and management. I don't know what to make of it and I don't plan on getting involved. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.